And we are so glad to have you back. Okay, now we are going to talk a little bit about what's been going on with the ILN, and these are our major projects for this year. But before we get to those, we're going to talk about our highlights. Okay. As Pablo mentioned, recruitment has been at the highest level we've seen since 2008, with 7 new firms joining us for this year. And we're really excited to welcome all of those firms and to make them feel a part of the ILN family, which I know everyone here is excellent at doing. Our efforts do continue through the remainder of 2022. Obviously, we don't rest on our our laurels. So we're calling on all of our members, and that's all of you, to help us set our priorities for next year. A great big thanks goes out to our members who do continue to help. The way that we really achieve our recruitment goals is through our members. What more than us making cold calls to firms that we've identified as potential members, the best way for us to bring in a new member firm is to get your help in doing that. And I know I repeat this every conference, so it can get a bit tiring if you're not new here, but for those of you that haven't heard this before, for those of you that benefit from hearing it more than once, when you're working in a jurisdiction where we don't currently have a member firm, or if your clients are working there, or if you have friends there, all of you already know what the ideal, quote unquote, ideal ILN member looks like. It looks like your firm. So if you identify a firm that would be a good fit there, let me know who that firm is. I can look through, we've already identified a lot of those firms, but I can look through the history of the connections that we've made there and can let you know, what we've done there already in the past. And if you can make that initial connection for us and ask that firm if they would be interested in joining an international network like ours, that's much better, a much better approach than it is for us to make that initial outreach, because that warms up the approach for us. Then we can get involved from the administrative perspective, and that really helps smooth the process for us. That's worked in a few cases for us this year, as well as some of the other ways we've brought in firms in the past. And then I'd also like to give a big thank you out to our recruitment committee, who've been a huge help to me this year. That's something new that we started last year. We put together a recruitment committee. They help us set priorities along with what our member firms are looking for. Speaking of priorities, we're going to be sending out another recruitment survey in the next several weeks, so please keep an eye out for that. It goes out to all of the lawyers in your firm, so we encourage you to get them to fill that out too. It's not just something that's going to go out to the contacts. So it's not something that you as contacts need to fill out as just for the firm. It's something that we want to know, what is everybody interested in seeing for the network in general? Where are the places that you think we really need to have firms in that we don't currently? In some cases, we may have firms in those jurisdictions already. We know there are some sensitive jurisdictions where we currently have members and we maybe need to add another member there. If that's the case, please let me know. There are some, as I said, sensitive places, but it's something that we as a network do need to address anyway. We're not shying away from that. It may take some time, but it's something that we need to be aware of that's happening. So please do let me know. We want to obviously continue to broaden the referral pool for everybody, and the way that we do that is by increasing the membership. Speaking of referrals, as Pablo mentioned, we had an incredibly successful first half of the year. So I'm going to dig into the referrals that we had for the first half of the year. And when I do that, what we're going to do is look at the statistics over the last 5 years, but only for that first 6-month period, because I want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. So let's do that. For the first 6 months of this year, we had 195 referrals, and that is a 32% increase over 2021. When you look at 2017 to 2022, I know these numbers are really small. I thought I'd give everyone an eye test this morning. So if you can read these, you don't have to go to your eye doctor for the rest of the year. This goes left to right. So 2017 is on the left, 2022 is on the right. As you can see, there is sort of an anomaly where in 2018, which is this second from the left, there was also quite a high number there. That's 191 referrals. I'm not sure what caused that in 2018, but you can see that our numbers from 2019 to 2021 were fairly consistent. So we did during the pandemic keep those numbers pretty good. This past 6-month period is still 26% higher than it was in 2017. So I would, of course, love to say that this past 6 months is just because of the relationships in the ILN and you guys are so close and, you know, referring work to each other. But obviously, I think there are some market factors at play there. But for whatever reason, we did see that 32% increase over the first 6 months of the year. But one of the things I do want to mention, and this is especially for the new attendees, these numbers, regardless of what they are still extremely underreported. We don't get referral data from everybody in the network. This is just based on the referral data that I get. And this is also just based on the referral data that the firms are able to capture. Not every firm is doing a great job of capturing the referral data either. So it just depends on who is able to capture it and how. So what I will say is what we found over time, and this is based on talking to the member firms and also talking to other network heads. Strangely enough, the best way to capture referral data is when lawyers copy us on their initial referral request to another lawyer. It seems like a silly way to do it, but for some reason, that's the most effective. Not all of those matters are going to come to fruition, and we know that. But when you do that, we can put it in that initial draft report, and then you can get back to me and say, you know, that didn't happen, remove it, or yes, that did happen. So that seems to be the most effective way to capture referral data. And that way you don't have to worry about keeping track of it necessarily for 6 months. And then in July of, you know, whatever this year, you're looking back and thinking like, what happened in January? Like, I don't remember what happened in January. So that seems to be the most effective way to do it. But, you know, we do assume that these numbers are extremely underreported. So then I did do some additional digging into these numbers to look at where we are by region. So this is 2022 by region. We have 54% of referrals. These are referrals being made. So referrals coming out of the Americas are the highest numbers. 31% are coming out of Europe and the UK. 15% are coming out of Asia Pacific. We currently have nothing coming out of Africa, but those firms just joined, and also we're not necessarily expecting a lot to be exported out of the region. So what I will say is, for the most part, and this has historically been the case, most referrals are going to be interregional. We did see some interesting things taking place this period, and I do compare these from 2017 to now, because this will be the first time that that's not happening within the Asia Pacific region. I do want to say I have a market research background, so I have to say this. In a former life, the numbers in the Asia Pacific region are fairly small. So a couple of referrals here or there make a big statistical difference. So take what I say with a grain of salt when it comes to the Asia Pacific region. Okay. So let's quickly look at the referrals as they're received by region before we get to the interregional referrals. So here you can see most of the referrals are going into Europe and the UK. So that's interesting. So the Americas are sending out a lot of referrals, and a lot of them are going into Europe and the UK. So why does that matter? That means there's a pretty big relationship between Europe and the UK and the Americas region. So keeping in mind that most of the people in this room are from those two regions, this is an important conference. So you want to make sure that you're not just networking with the people from your own region while you're here, which I think you wouldn't do anyway. But we used to say that the regional conferences were extremely important because obviously people networking with their own regions is important. This is showing that the conference networking between regions happening between these two regions especially is very important. Okay. So these are Asia Pacific referrals. We only have one Asia Pacific firm here. Where's Uday? But this is still important because you want to see obviously where their referrals are going. So this is 2022, the first 6 months of this year. As you can see here, and I'll show you what happened between now and 5 years ago, but the firms have pretty evenly split their outgoing referrals between their own region and the Americas, and then they're exporting an additional 38% of their referrals to Europe and the UK. So this is significant for a couple of reasons. First, some of the region is still under fairly heavy lockdowns and quarantine penalties for out of country travel. So what that means is it impels the rest of us to be more intentional about our contact with firms there, especially China, because they're not able to travel as much. So you want to make sure that you're top of mind with them, especially if they're referring to your region. So this is also the first time that we see that one of our regions is exporting much more work than is staying internally. So only 31% of their referrals is staying internally, about a third of their work. And the difference between that and 2017 is pretty significant. But again, you know, as I said, take that with a grain of salt because the numbers in general in Asia Pacific are fairly small. For European UK referrals, the interesting thing here is there's not a big change between 2022 and 2017. The numbers stay fairly stagnant. There's a little bit of a change between Asia Pacific and the Americas, but overall, the number of referrals in the region stay about the same. And the composition of the referrals stays about the same. So there's not too much to say there. But where we do see a big difference is in the Americas. So what happened here is the level of referrals increased a ton. And when I say a ton, it's gone up about 169%. That's the numbers. And that's changed the overall distribution of referrals being made. So here, this is 2022. You can see that about 50% of the referrals are still being made within the Americas, which is important because, you know, interregional referrals are important. But 50% of them are now being exported to either to Asia Pacific or to Europe and the UK. So that looks, you know, like that. But then when you look at 2017, that's a huge difference. So in 5 years ago, 72% of the referrals were being made interregionally. The composition of the network was not that much different 5 years ago in terms of our firms. So obviously the impact of that means a conference like this where you're interacting with more of your peers outside of the region is important. And this, in general, what this means to me is this is very positive for the network because we are a global organization. Yes, we do have various regions, but we're looking to foster relationships outside of those regions, not just regionally. So what we want to make sure that we make those connections a focus. And if you're doing business outside of those areas, outside of your region, look to meet with people over the next couple of days and foster those relationships. The other thing, and we were talking about this with David and Barry the other day, is the conferences are great and valuable and very important. There's nothing that replaces face-to-face meetings. And so that's one of the reasons why we obviously wanted to get back to them as quickly as possible. But one of the things that we learned during the pandemic is that Zoom meetings can be very efficient and effective as well. So when you get back to the office, consider both the geographies, but also the practice areas where you expect the most referrals to come in and where you expect to refer the most work out of. And then take a look at the ILN members that you are in those areas and have that practice specialty. And if you're not sure, you can ask me. I'm more than happy to help you organize that. And then we can help you set up Zoom meetings with those firms, because the benefit of that is not only are you going to help to build relationships with the ILN ambassadors on the other end, but also with more of the lawyers at those firms who aren't able to attend these conferences. And that way you're going to help build the ability to have more referrals. If they're pretty close to you geographically, you can have in-person meetings with them, but in the cases where they're not, you can have those Zoom meetings where you can then have more follow-up and start to really integrate your firms a bit more, so that the ability to have those referrals is going to be there. So that's another way you can really use the network that's going to help develop these referrals in a more intentional way that you'll be able to see some real benefit from. In terms of the types of referrals that we saw, not surprisingly, corporate is the top. And again, this is a little tough because of the way that we ask for the information about the referrals, but if we put them into buckets, 39% were corporate. The next highest was 14% in labor and employment, which makes sense given what we're seeing in the marketplace the last couple of years. 11% in IP, 10% litigation, and 6% real estate. Everything else fell into, one of several other buckets. Any questions on any of the referrals or anything you want me to go back to and touch on? Yes. Yeah, I can send you the presentation. I could put the presentation on the app. Absolutely. Sure, 100%. Yep. Yeah, no problem at all. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. And just a few quick words on our initiatives before I dive into the main projects that we've been working on. There's a number of projects that we have that are sort of the main bread and butter of the ILN. As many of you will know, we did an audit of our specialty groups this year. We wanted to see which groups made the most sense to keep moving forward with. We added some groups, which is really exciting. And then we added some new chairs and some co-chairs to some of our former groups. So I do mention this because most of the lawyers in the room are either corporate lawyers or litigators. We do have a couple of other lawyers here too, which is great. But what we're going to do moving forward is we plan to have more virtual sessions for all of our specialty groups, which we're really excited about because we'd like to have some continuity for the specialty groups. We found that when we had the virtual sessions during the pandemic, they were really effective, not necessarily when we did them as a conference, but for the specialty groups in particular. So we want to make sure that we can do that and incorporate the people that aren't necessarily coming to the conferences, but want to be able to participate in the specialty groups. So we're going to do that, not a lot, but 2 to 3 times a year so that people have the ability to see each other, to form relationships, and again, for the purpose of hopefully referring work to each other. So we're going to be doing a virtual specialty group session in October. I'm working on planning that with our group chairs at the moment. We won't be repeating that for the corporate and the litigation groups because they're meeting here. So for our corporate and litigation chairs, don't freak out that you don't know about it because you don't have to do it. And for everyone else, we've got some new groups launching. If you want to join a group, just email me and let me know. If you want to encourage your partners to join a group, also email me and let me know. A list of all of the groups is available on our website. And we are also about to finalize the matches for the 6th year of our mentorship program. We do need a couple of mentors still. We have a record number of mentees. They're very adorable and excited. I love our mentees. I love them every year. They are just so excited and wonderful. And it really is a great program. What we've done over the past several years is to evolve the program. So we actually now have a set of instructions for you. So it's fairly simple. I mean, even if you don't want to come up with things on your own, I have activities for you every month. Like, you don't even have to think that hard. So I understand being a part of the ILN can be a lot of involvement. So if you yourself don't want to do it, nominate one of your partners. That's fine too. It doesn't have to be an ILN ambassador that does this. It can be anybody in the firm that you think would be useful to participate. And that's true actually for all ILN activities. It never has to be an ILN ambassador that does it. If there's someone else in the firm that you think, oh, that person would be great to be involved, pick them and send them my way. I'm happy to have them. So that's that. And if you are interested, please grab me during the coffee break and let me know. Or if you think someone in your firm is interested, also let me know. And the other thing is, a number of people have mentioned about ILN Lite to me. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's a program that we launched in 2019 for our younger lawyers. The idea was that for senior associates and young partners, they would join the ILN conference for a day in advance. It's a lunch and then a half-day program on Thursday afternoon. They then are able to come to the welcome reception with everybody, and then Friday morning session and lunch. And then they can opt to stay for the full program if they want, or they can go home. So we had hoped to do more with that, and then obviously the pandemic hit. So we are relaunching that in advance of the ILN annual program next year in Rio. So we hope to see many of your younger lawyers there too. So start planning for that as well. And we will be giving you more information on that when we have it. Okay. Any questions on any of that? Yeah. Not in Prague. No, definitely. Because we want to encourage everyone to join, since we did it in Paris as part of the European program, as sort of a pilot program. So this will be open to everyone. Our website. Many of you know that our big project for this year is redesigning our website. This is still in progress. I'm going to show you a presentation from our designers, because we hope to have a promo site for you, but half of them are out with COVID. So they've given us a presentation, but I thought it might help for you to understand what our goals are before I show you the presentation. We have three main goals. We want to create a compelling look and feel to better reflect how modern and progressive we are, but with more accessible, easy to find content. I think we can all agree we don't currently have it. We'd like to create a more memorable user experience by focusing around the key areas that we want to have that are more important to our audiences. Our audiences being, of course, our member firms, but also potential members and any of your clients who may be accessing our website. And we want to save on efficiency. That's more of a me side thing, but especially things like, obviously, I know some of you have had your time wasted by spammers. So we're going to look at things like email obfuscation. So here is the presentation on that. This is our existing site. They even helpfully gave me notes. So they think, and I don't disagree, that it was overloaded with content and a lack of appropriate information architecture, which made it difficult for users to find the content they were looking for. So I don't think anybody is surprised by that. We're also updating the logo. Some of you may not know, probably most of you don't know, that we actually had our logo trademarked last year, this year. However, I can confirm that this current logo would still be covered under that trademark, which is good news because we spent a lot of money trademarking it and a lot of time. So that's why it's not too different. But this is the updated logo. It's more legible, also in smaller sizes, and the typography is going to be more consistent with the new website. So it's only a little bit more modern. There's going to be a unified color palette. A lot of this is, very exciting to web designers, not as exciting to you. The typography and colors will be presented as an element. So here's the home page. This is more clean and organized. No, we decided not to do that. Apparently, that's what the committee decided. I didn't, you and I didn't, but they did. So here's a page overview that shows the consistency of all of the elements. So there's consistent proportions and sizes of photos, typography, all of that. Here you can really see the difference. It's much more structured, simpler to understand. You can see this is like the about section that gets translated. And we also make it really easy to join the ILN. There's like a call to action everywhere to join if people want to. Just things are you're not losing things nearly as much. The other thing to note is we are going to be dramatically cutting down on the number of articles that are getting included on the new website. A lot of that is because of the editorial burden it places on me. So we're only going to be including collaborative pieces such as ILN IP Insider and the specialty group guides, as well as any ILN news. Instead, we're going to be, we already include the Twitter section, but the Twitter section is really going to end up being sort of our news item. So anybody that has a Twitter feed that we already include is going to be a nicer view there that's going to go there. Then we have this. This is currently our about section. So it just looks much nicer. We will have the ability to switch out some of these photos, and we might do that with actual photos of ILN members, because we don't know these people. This is just much more accessible looking. And you'll be easily, so this is the contact page that also looks much nicer. You can see here, this is our current member directory. It's just not great. The thing that we don't know yet is how the search is going to work in practice. And this is the thing that is most important to me and the committee. So that I am working with a committee that's a wide swath of the network. It's me, Pablo, Melissa is on it. We have a marketing director from one of our firms on it, and a younger member of an ILN firm. And we did that so that we have a good cross section of the ILN that's there, so that we have good feedback on what members and people want. Obviously the search is the most important because we know that that's how you're using the network primarily. So that's what we're pushing them the most on. So once we're comfortable with how that works, that's when we'll be really happiest with the website. So there's actually going to be two search functions on the website. One, and that's the one we care the most about, is how you search for a member. You'll be able to search for them not only by firm, by name, but also by practice and industry. So that ability will be there, which I think will help everybody a lot. And then there's also going to be the search function just for the website itself, which is, more if you're looking for an article or something on the website, which I think is not something people do much. Right now, I think you can see, this is not as important. This is how they picked on Davis and Gilbert, but not for any reason, but you can see the profile page. There's just a lot of information. It can be hard to read, but this is the way the new profile pages will look. It's just a lot easier to look at than mobile. It's going to be much more mobile friendly. And again, they put this on there and I was like, they don't care about this. They want to see like, what is the profile page going to look like? So it's going to be much easier to see people's information on the profile page and be able to access, when you're trying to tell somebody, contact this person, but you're on your phone, you'll be able to do that. So that's that.
To that point, what I do a lot is someone in my firm is a lawyer in Brazil, and I'll say no.
I don't know anyone good there.
And then I want to give them a list of contact information. way to grab Melissa's time? I mean, I haven't done it, but off the website,
We're going to make sure.
without necessarily.
Yeah.
Literally.
We're going to make sure, because obviously that is what happens most of the time, because, you know, that's what you're doing. So that's going to definitely be on the list. So once we have the actual live version of the site and we're testing it, we'll make sure that that's one of the functionalities that you have. Does anybody have any other questions about the website? Okay. Mhm, mhm. 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 Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, to Pavlo's point, one of the things that I think would be helpful, you know, we were discussing this too the other day, is that I think everybody wants to be good at everything, and we do have a lot of full service firms here, but it would be helpful if, and we'll be asking everybody to take a look at their member profiles as we go through this process and update the new website. Obviously, we'll be pulling all of the information from what we have already, but if we can have firms just put together their top 3 to 5 practice areas and put those, and we'll probably ask you to rank them, so that you can, it will be the way to best and most effectively share with the members where you really shine in terms of, you know, what is best for your firm. And so people, when they contact you, will really know what your strengths are, as opposed to just saying, we really can do everything and we really are good at everything, which I think we all know is not accurate. So please, David.
Search that.
Mhm. That's already in there. Yeah, that's already in there. Yep. Great question. Great question. It really should have been done already, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm asking when I get back, because yeah, I wish I knew. Yeah. Attilia?
So we ask again, which practice are you want to put in the website, or you want to the one we already.
That'll be 2 things. One we'll be using for the search, but then we'll have something different in your profile. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. One of our other major projects, which we launched last year, was the 360-degree member review. I just want to go over that again for everybody. The goal for that was we use the term 360-degree member review because it really is to capture a full idea of how each member firm sits within the ILN, how they interact with the ILN, and how we as an organization can better serve you as the member firm. So we've done 6 of these. We haven't selected the firms for any particular reason other than where they are in relation to either my travel or the executive committee's travel, or where we are having a conference. And that has a lot to do with the pandemic. So at this point, we've learned a lot. We're further developing the process as we go. What the process involves is there's 3 parts. We do pre-visit research. There's a member questionnaire that the member firm fills out, and then we do an in-person visit. And it's myself and a member of the executive committee, or 2, depending on who's available. And one of us is, usually somebody's available on Zoom. The idea is that we find out, we look at referrals, the involvement of the firm in the ILN in terms of meeting attendance, specialty group involvement, those types of things. And then, as I said, how we can be better serving the firm as an organization. And it's been really enlightening and very useful. So our goal is to do 5 to 6 a year. And we'll be continuing to do those and contacting some of you as we go forward to do them as well. And I think it's been a very useful process. So we will be in contact with more of you as we go forward to do those. So does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. And then our Affinity and Ally group. I've gotten a lot of questions on this. So many of you know that we're launching our Affinity and Ally group this year. And tomorrow I'm going to have a breakout to discuss the preliminary results of the diversity, equity, and inclusion survey that we're currently conducting. And I'll talk more on that in a moment. But today I want to talk a little bit more about the group, diversity in general, and why we're doing this. So what is diversity? It can be a little bit difficult to define that in a global organization because everybody has a different idea and a different definition for diversity in their country. So for our purposes, I like this one, which comes from the US Department of Housing and Urban Development, which states that diversity encompasses the range of similarities and differences for each individual brings to the workplace, or in our case, network, including but not limited to national origin, language, race, color, disability, ethnicity, gender, age, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, socioeconomic status, veteran status, and family structures. So what does that mean for the ILN? For right now, it means that we're focusing on providing a safe and supportive space for shared experiences and using strength in numbers to help solve particular issues as they relate to diversity and to bring in more diverse voices. So, okay, maybe you think, well, I'm not considered a diverse voice, and since I'm not a marginalized person, I don't need to participate in this group, or maybe I don't belong there, even if I'm somewhat curious. But the truth is that all marginalized groups need allies, and together we can do more than we can do alone. And yes, it is the right thing to do, which is always why I believe in doing it. But also, diversity leads to greater innovation and creativity, a greater range of skills, a boost in your business, happier employees, increased productivity, a greater understanding of your clients, more talent to choose from, and higher revenues. So if you need more of a reason to become an ally and engage in building diversity in your firms, that's a great list. So here's the call to action. We are keeping the survey open until the end of October. I would like more responses than we currently have. We are encouraging everyone to fill the survey out, not just one person per firm. I have sent it out to all of our ILN members, not all of the lawyers, not just ambassadors. So if you haven't filled it out yet, please do fill that out. Please encourage your lawyers at all levels to fill that out. I'm going to send out a reminder email following the conference. We look forward to getting additional data from you. If you'd like to hear the preliminary data, I am going to be sharing it tomorrow during the breakout that I'm hosting in the morning. And if anybody has any questions about that group or anything I just said, please let me know, because I know this can be a touchy and uncomfortable area for people. And I'm happy to talk about it. Okay. So then finally, looking to the future. The board and executive committee and we always plan for the future, of course, and I talked about this in Amsterdam too. We'd like to work on developing our plans with more of a pipeline so that we're not just looking towards the next year, but we're looking several years down the line. So the idea is that we would begin to research and identify resources for those projects that we'd like to look at for a couple of years, several years down the line, so that we can put together timelines and ensure that we've got the best measures for success moving forward. And some of those things include expanding ILN Light. We just talked a little bit about that, but we'd like to further engage young ILN professionals in the network through creating a robust professional development system to establish the basics, identify young professionals in the ILN community who have leadership potential to put them on a path to ILN leadership, and some with diversity goals in mind, and potentially invest in some expertise or specialty professional development areas. We would review our community efforts on a variety of levels, including the impact of our travel network-wide. For example, do we aim to become carbon neutral, and how do we do this? I started looking into that, and that's really something. The impact of our conferences on the environment, continuing to be active and bold in responding to community events. For example, exercising our voice in the community, creating a pro bono program within the ILN community. That's actually something other networks have done, and things like that. I'd really love to cultivate community and personal wellness for our members by continuing to share mental health resources, re-implementing anonymous satisfaction surveys, which address inclusion and personal safety so that people feel they can bring their whole selves to the ILN, implement training for ILN leaders, employees, and also the board, executive committee, and some of our task force members to ensure understanding of a clear and active focus on growing, retaining, and investing in the next generation of diverse leaders within the ILN, implement professional development and leadership tools to support managing discourse and conflict with attention and intention, and growing wealth and initiatives at ILN in-person conferences. And I know that part sounds like very touchy-feely, but we have a really high level of mental health crisis within the legal profession. So I feel that this is something that as an organization, we can and should be providing that would be of value to our members. And finally, creating collaboration or collaborative business development opportunities for member firms. And I know that sounds like something we already do, and to some extent we do, but what I'm envisioning for this piece is that this is a multi-year initiative, and that is something that other networks have done, and it involves a great deal of time and effort. The idea being that we would hire specialized business development professionals in individual markets, and they would serve under the ILN umbrella. They would get to know network firms in those markets, identify business development opportunities, and then help them to manage the individual matters as a team. And that obviously would be a multi-year effort to pursue. But if we wanted to move the network sort of to the next level, that's the thing that would take us there. So as you can see, we have some big plans for the ILN for the next several years, and we are really excited that you are a part of them. So any questions on that piece of the presentation? Any questions at all about the ILN in general? Hi, Carl. All right, fantastic. Well, then I will let you go to coffee break early. Yeah. We will rejoin at 11 o'clock. All right, thank you very much.